It was odd to be down here. It was very bright. How have you been?
Been good.
Good. Ready for summer?
Well, ready or not, as
I
it
guess
is.
that's true.
Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, jeez. You're going to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down? Oh, I missed the clock. Where's that clock?
I couldn't find where I was supposed to sit.
I had to do the.
I just sit between the two of you. I figured it was the right.
Well, if Alan had been seated.
Norma helped me.
Okay, so we all. Oh, because it's electronic now.
Yes, all right, we're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. At this point, I'd like to call the meeting of the Type B Corporation to order. And Ms. Box, if you'll please call the roll.
President Leah Olivari,
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson,
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers,
Here.
Mark LaRue,
Present.
Jesus Jimenez, Mr. Jimenez is absent, Robert Temez, Eric Evans is absent, City Manager Peter Zanoni,
Present.
Assistant City Attorney Jackie Bazan.
Present.
All right, a quorum of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Box. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment? I don't see anyone who's raised their hands. Have we received any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I don't believe anybody here is going to ask for an excused absence. I think you...
Sick last time, wasn't it?
Was it last time?
And I was out due to
Oh, okay.
Thursday.
Sorry, I stand corrected. So,
I'd like to request an excused absence.
okay, I have a request from Mr. Wilson that he be excused due to illness. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second that Mr. Wilson's absence be, for the last meeting, be excused due to illness. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And Ms. Summers also had a conflict.
Yes, I was out due to tax.
Oh, that's right, I forgot. Yes.
Move we
She-
excuse.
Okay, I have do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Second. So I have a motion and a second that Ms. Summers be excused for business reasons. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. I'll make a note that Mr. Evans is now with us.
My apologies.
That's okay. Getting through security sometimes can take a few seconds. Okay, basically we need the financial report. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I missed those. Okay, we have the minutes before us for the April 15th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve or any corrections? Mr. Temez?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wilson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right, now we get the financial.
Exactly. Heather
You're not
Holbrook-
Alma.
No, I'm not Alma. Heather Holbrook, Assistant City Manager. So I'll be presenting the financials for May 31st, 2024.
March.
So,
March.
March, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here looking at March and I said May. So March 31st, 2024. So the fund began the year with a fund balance of $14.5 million. Revenues year to date are 4.8, almost 4.9 million. Expenditures year to date is almost $1 million, which leaves an ending fund balance of $18.4 million. Below that, you'll see how that fund balance is broken out between affordable housing, economic development, and streets. So then moving into the expenditures, as of March 31st, the affordable housing had paid out $16,000 expenditures. Economic development had paid out $949,000, and those are primarily related to the contracts we have for the small business projects, along with the major business incentives, and then streets has paid out $23,000 year to date. So So looking at the commitments, right now there are 2 commitments under affordable housing. One is just for the infill housing incentive program. We actually will be bringing forward some suggestions, not at this meeting, but at the June meeting. We're working with our housing department, and so there are some suggestions for programs for this. And then we have the commitment to the Alma at Greenwood, which actually today we'll be releasing those funds. That project has not come to fruition, and so we'll be releasing that commitment. Then moving into economic development, we have multiple commitments that are outstanding right now. We do plan that we will hopefully be paying out the South Texas Botanical Gardens in this fiscal year, along with continuing the obligation for the TAMU-CC unmanned aircraft system, and then we will be completing, then we have our small business credit contracts that we have with Del Mar and for the internship programs. Then moving into streets, we'll be transferring the full amount over into CIP. We did bring an item for consideration last meeting that included switching some funding between projects, and so we have 2 projects that are being funded from this: the Rodfield Road and then the road that's there leading into HEB. Hunt
Drive?
Huntwick, there you go. Okay, then looking at our sales tax collected, so we are 6 months through the year. Our collections are on track. We actually have collected about $100,000 more than what was budgeted. So we are at $4.4, almost $4.5 million in collections for the year. So that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Is there any questions regarding this report? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next before us, we have 2 items on the agenda. The first is a motion to amend, authorizing an amendment to the business incentive agreement. Here comes Mr. Jimenez. We now have 7 members present, if you'll recognize that in the minutes, with Texas A&M Corpus Christi to extend the construction completion deadline and obtain a permanent certificate of occupancy from the city's Development Services Department. And we are extending from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. I'll say my understanding is they think they'll probably be sooner than that, but rather than having to come back again, I see heads nodding, we took a worst case on this one. So is there a staff presentation or any discussion? Randy?
No, we didn't. We just want to let you know that, yes, again, Randy Almaguer, Compliance Officer with the EDC. TAMU-CC is looking to request that extension out. They have done some completion of some construction, which includes the asbestos abatement, metal stud wall layout, utility tie-in to the city, interior plumbing. They got other stuff coming along. And like you just mentioned, they look to get this done sooner than later, but as opposed to just extending another 2 or 3 months, we said, let's just put it out to next summer. 1 year from
Sooner would be great.
Yes. But I stand by for any questions.
Any questions? So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson, second. Is that Mr. Temez? Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. The motion carries unanimously, I think.
Thank you.
The second one is a motion to amend the fiscal year 2023-24 Corpus Christi B Corporation budget to release funding in the amount of $1.191871 related to the commitment of the Alma at Greenwood. Staff presentation.
Sure. I don't necessarily have a presentation, but this is a commitment that we had a lot of hopes in this project. It's come back in a couple of different reiterations, but unfortunately they just were not able to make it work. And so what we're asking the board to do is go ahead and release that funding that will release back into fund balance. Nothing has been spent against it. It just was a commitment within the budget, and so we want to go ahead and release that so it would be available if other projects come forward.
I think Mr. Wilson has a question.
Sure.
Not a question. I was going to make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have one question, just mainly for people listening in. What seemed to have been the problems or issues that were insurmountable in making this project happen?
My understanding is that just the financial stack work. I think that there was some issues with the tax credits, and so this was going to be paired with those tax credits on the federal level. And so my understanding is that they just, once they looked at the financial stack and looked at all the available commitments, they just couldn't make this work.
In terms of the incoming revenues versus the cost?
Exactly.
Okay. So I have a motion.
So forth.
Second?
Yes.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any more questions? So that puts a lot more money in to deal with affordable housing?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Ms. Summers.
You did mention earlier we're going to see something in June on affordable housing?
Yes,
And so
yes.
will these new funds back into the account be taken in consideration with
Of course.
what we're going to see? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. The motion carries. So, sorry to see that project not mature. We don't have any public hearings. We do maybe want to take just a minute. They are in the process of putting together their economic development Type B budgets, and so I asked that this item be on the agenda, just if anybody had any thoughts or ideas about things that might not be in the budget now. Y'all all know the budgets that we have, but you might want to see added or at least discussed as we move forward with the funds available. Anybody have any thoughts? Well, you know I'd have one, okay. So one of the things that came up when we were in discussion at the City Council, and it is something I had talked to Ms. Holbert and Mr. Culbertson and Mr. Almengar about, and Joe, is it's not real easy for folks who are interested in doing and utilizing some of these funds to know what funds are available, particularly from an economic development point of view. And Councilmember Mendez raised that same issue. I agreed with her when I was speaking. And so I'd like to see us maybe include a line item that can be developed that would really allow us to build a communications information, whether it's city website and CCRED, but it would not only talk about what the Type B funds are, what the rules are, how do you qualify, how do you do an application, but it would also identify things like the tax increment financing money, tax abatement. So it's really a portal, for folks to have the information. I don't think we have anything as comprehensive as that right now.
No, not as comprehensive. We do have individual information out there on the TERSs, along with, we don't have a lot of information. We really don't do that many tax abatements. Most of the time we're doing 380 agreements. We're rebating taxes. Right. So no, we don't have a comprehensive landing page per se to say, here's all your economic development tools. It is something, as we had talked about, that we are redoing our city website. We're hoping to launch that in August. So we'll have more flexibility and a little bit more latitude on how we can set up our web pages with this new format. And so it is something that we are taking in consideration. It is something that we may also partner with either our communications department or even look to, we've been talking with some outside firms to get that, we have a tendency to look at things one way. And so being able to have somebody from the outside help us with those viewpoints and those insights also is something that we're looking
at. Yeah, and I had spoken to somebody out at the university, and they were talking about they had been approached from their economic development point of view that, and I'm not saying this is the answer, but that there's a company who does this routinely, and in fact, the way you do it is so that the portal is set up that it goes out automatically and picks up updated information. Mm-hmm. So it's not somebody having to revise.
Exactly.
It's a digital process to make that happen. So I do think you almost have to be inside the club to know about this money, and looking for the bankers to say something different or anybody, but what do y'all think about that?
I hear frustration a little bit sometimes of knowing where to go.
How do you enter the system?
Yeah, what's the best process? What are the detailed purposes of different kinds of money?
Sure.
And so I think it would be really good to integrate resources that could be used for economic development that businesses are looking for, and an easier way maybe to be able to see if you qualify.
Sure.
I don't know if Mr. Zanoni has any comments on that?
Yeah, so I don't think we briefed everybody yet on my team, so, but the council has asked for, and we know we need it too, more marketing consultant services. And so we're in the process right now of interviewing some of the marketing firms that are here in the city of Corpus Christi, within these limits of our city, and we're gonna take to council in the next couple of weeks 2 or 3 consultant contracts for marketing services. So we could use one of those or 2 or several of them to help market this program as well. And we know that we put things on our website and we do some social media blasts, but even that's not enough anymore nowadays. So we need different strategy on how do we market, how do we brand the city and everything that we're doing. And this certainly fits within that. So we can use those one of those firms to help market these economic development or the housing funds to bring more attention to it in new and creative ways, things that we're not doing today, that just we're not reaching a lot of our community and our traditional ways of communicating with them. So we have to try alternative delivery methods, and that's something we're working on now.
Great, because, you almost have to know.
Right, yeah.
And I understand Google is getting ready to throw a big hiccup in everybody's life as they move to A&I and try to compete.
Yeah.
That comes from my Austin friends.
Right.
Say, ooh.
To include...
all could change, too.
Right. To include, one thing we need to do in things like our water projects is different age groups, different demographic groups. We tend to communicate to people that know city business or that we've interacted with, but there's a whole group of people out there that wouldn't be interested in this. So we have to think of ways, how do we get to them? How do we reach them and help educate them on what we do here in the city?
Yeah, this is a pretty targeted market, I think, in our case.
Yeah.
More towards developers, small
Right.
businesses. It's not necessarily the general public. I'm worried we don't want to be seen as apply here to get your job. But, I don't know. Do y'all
Yeah.
hear that complaint at all? Mr. Evans, Mr. Menace, what do you think?
Well, I think transparency is good, and the more we can get these funds out there, as long as it can help the city and meet the goals, I think it's a good thing.
Good.
Yeah, I agree, and as Peter mentioned, I think just the marketing or the outreach is sometimes missing or it's not there. I know from dealing with different economic development corporations, like in the past, like they wouldn't communicate with like the EDC, but now with Randy and Mike, they're very outgoing and they're out there. So it's now I see more synergy between the different economic development corporations working together and funding each other, projects and developments out there. So I think it's just something like that to create some sort of matrix, a sort of maybe like a one-stop shop where somebody can go in there and say, this is what I got. And then some assigned agent or somebody from the city to see that, like, oh, okay, that goes to EDC or that goes to Type A.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I think that's what we're lacking, just the one-stop shop, dealing with different companies that want to come into the area. Sometimes they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
A portal really
It becomes
these days.
kind of confusing because,
You let the computer be your digital cop.
Yeah. Yeah, or
So-
just to be able to go in there to just a unified single form website or part of the city
Right.
website and say, this is what my project's about, this is my development, or whatever you're doing. And then that person that's assigned to monitor that traffic through there says, okay, well, that goes to Type A, Type
Yeah.
B, kind of.
And that is one of the things that we are trying. We do have our internal economic development office. And so that's one of the things that we are working towards is having those come into the economic development office to be able then to direct where is the tool. And it may not just be one tool. The other thing is that through the economic development office, not only are we looking at incentives, but also just assisting and helping guide through the development process, through development services, that kind of stuff. And so it is something that we're trying to bring more awareness to. And we are looking forward to the new website, and we are looking forward to hopefully partnering with a true campaign to be able to bring that forward.
So on that note, I think I've heard that you were in the midst of developing an a city-oriented economic development plan?
Strategic plan, yes.
Right, where is that?
So I just got the draft of it recently. It should be finalized within the next couple of weeks.
So is that something we could also see maybe?
Sure. And it is more of, it is less of a detailed plan. So from that, then we need to go through and actually create that strategic plan. It's more of an overview of, it's more of an overview. And then we will next step would be go through and actually create that individual strategic plan where our targeted areas are, where our targeted markets are, targeted industries, things like that.
Yeah, I think it was just from a general point of view where we
Yes.
might be able to
Sure.
circle in. So, does anybody else have any other thoughts about the budget? I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question. I know back several months ago, we talked about the economic development liaison within development services. Where are we on that?
We just put it on hold.
We've put it on hold.
Yeah.
I guess I've heard recently that of small business owners trying to open their doors and being told that they have to have a lot of components in their project that they don't understand. And so getting that development services liaison kind of on board, I think would also help.
If they can make the system work.
If they can,
That's-
yeah,
that's
but
my
that's the
only
thing. I
concern.
think that's another layer of confusion. They don't,
Yeah,
not everyone understands construction and what they have to have in
Right.
commercial versus
Exactly.
to open the doors. So I think if there was some sort of marketing around that,
Yeah.
even if we don't have that liaison, if we have someone within development services that
is identified.
on that page.
Yeah. It is something that, we had
It's
developed.
still in the budget, yeah.
Yeah, we had, it's still in the budget. We had developed a general responsibilities, and I think there had been some feelings that possibly we were duplicating what was already there. It is definitely something that we can bring forward for discussion in June. If y'all want to walk through that, if there is still identified need, it is something that we can bring forward.
And I don't know if it has to be a full-time person, but just something where it's highlighted, interested in opening your business.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is who you need to contact at development services kind of thing.
So just for the new board members, traditionally, we have sort of gotten a preview of the budget in June, and then we've approved it in July so that the council can then approve it in August. So that's why I'm trying to bring this up, because I guess Mr. Houlihan and you will be presenting us a proposed budget for both A and B
Yes.
in June.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Another question.
Okay.
And I guess in speaking with the marketing, we also had talked about in one of the housing projects, kind of identifying projects that the infill housing program could be used towards. Do we have that information compiled?
So that's what's going to be coming forward in June.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're still working with them. They got, and just it was a capacity issue. They were trying to get through the CDBG. We just reallocated a bunch of CDBG funding, and so they were concentrating on that. They do have some ideas, and they're working on completing those to bring forward for consideration.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have those tools
Yes.
now, that
Yes.
we're getting the information out so that people can know these are the projects they can be used
So
for.
has there been a
Thank you.
change to, or has the city requested amendment to the HUD, to the Secretary of Housing about the definition of affordable?
So I don't believe so. I mean, for type B, it is by state statute, which state statutes reference back to the
Federal code.
Exactly.
But the federal code, because I looked at it, says you can ask the HUD secretary for a waiver. So,
Okay.
I mean.
We can take that forward and.
Yeah, I mean, the question we have is, we're having a difficult time really getting what I call workforce housing.
Yes.
Because those people are kind of caught in that.
Yeah, they're the 80 to 120% AMIs that it's hard to.
To
yeah.
get them, to help them.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something y'all could consider
Okay.
pursuing is a HUD amendment.
Yeah. Okay. And if you'd like to, so I actually put a few things together if we want to walk through that, just kind of for consideration going into June.
Great.
Okay. So wait for the presentation. There you go. So we talked a little bit about this during the financial statements, but these are the current commitments that are on the economic development side. So remember, you've got 3 different kind of buckets of money. And so these are the commitments that are outstanding on the economic development side, not including the small business contracts. Those are something that we consider on an annual basis. So you have about $4.4 million, which is committed.
over multiple years.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Then looking at the streets project, like I said, we'd come back just last meeting and looked at substituting out a portion of what was allocated towards Williams Roads to Huntwick. So we will be recommending in fiscal year 25 and 26 that we make Williams whole, and then also there's a need for the Bear Lane project. And so that's something that we are targeting to bring forward for consideration. Then really looking at the type B language. So right now, the way it was initiated in 2018, and so the way the funding is broken out is there's 50% for economic development, specifically the promotion and development of new and expanded business enterprises. Then $500,000 goes to affordable housing annually, and then the balance goes to the construction maintenance of the arterial and collectors. So between the funds right now, so in economic development, there's about 9.5, almost $9.6 million in fund balance that's available for commitments. And then affordable housing, about 2.8, so a total of $12.4 million that is available for commitments. So things to look forward to in the fiscal year 25 is that right now the voter language says up to 500,000. It does not say exactly 500,000, it says up to. So it's something to consider is we do have a sufficient amount that is accumulated in that affordable housing. Is there a consideration or an appetite to possibly lower that amount until we have more projects and then we could put that back up? The other thing is a consideration of additional commercial and industrial streets to boost economic development. The funding that's in the economic development pot is available for streets also. It is not just the amount that is allocated to streets. And so it's something, a consideration that if we want to continue putting some of this fund balance to work, is going to go ahead and applying that money or awarding that money to additional street projects in the absence of other economic development type requests right now.
With the amending of the up to 500,000, most of the projects that we have that come forward that have actually come to a vote are larger than 500,000. So if we amend that down, we're essentially...
Well, we've got $2.8 million sitting in fund balance right now.
Sure.
So that would just be the annual allocation. So if we wanted to consider in fiscal year 25, since we already have $2.8 million in that fund balance, is maybe not doing the full 500,000, doing a lesser amount, which would then allow it to go into possibly streets projects. It would not be a permanent amendment. It would be something that we can consider for fiscal year 25 because the ballot language just says an up to $500,000 language.
Okay, thank you.
And that, by the way, we have some money in A still, too.
Yes, we still have affordable housing in A also. So we do have a lot of affordable housing money is the consideration, like I said, of lowering that allocation and putting it maybe to streets or to just the economic development.
Any thoughts? Yes, Mr. Lurie.
I guess because that was discussed at that workshop we had, and a couple council members brought up amending that, but we would have to actually go back and reauthorize B to increase that amount.
No.
Exactly, so that if you'll pull the presentation back up.
The affordable housing, that was brought up.
Yeah, these three bullets, this is basically what was in the ballot language. So 50% has to go to economic development. Up to 500,000 has to go to affordable housing, and then the balance of the proceeds would go to the streets things. And so that was actually on the ballot. But there is that latitude because it is an up to amount. But yes, if we wanted to redo how this is allocated, have to go back to the voters to abolish the current and reauthorize a different amount.
But there is nothing in this language, ask the city attorney, but to me, there's nothing in the 50% language that would prohibit improvement of a street related to that project.
Exactly. So basically, streets would be an allowable project under the designated
50%.
street funding or what's called economic development, because that economic development.
That's an infrastructure improvement,
Exactly.
which is clearly allowed if it's tied to a specific project.
No, I think it could just be the infrastructure portion. So if we just wanted to improve.
Okay.
Well, because while it says specifically the promotion of development of new and expanded business enterprises, it's still subject to the state statute. What the state statute allows a specific infrastructure to be built in support of expanded or new businesses.
Yeah, the question is, does it have to be sort of tied to some type of, at least potential new or expanded businesses?
I think in looking at the language, we don't believe so. It just can be in general in support of new or expanded business.
We need a little legal
Correct.
decision on that.
And it is new and expanded businesses, so it's not solely new businesses, but we can provide some more information regarding that.
And look at
But it's pretty broad in terms of what Texas allows cities to use in terms of streets.
Yeah, it's
for
just
those
the AG's opinions always catch us sometimes.
We will give some more information for everybody to have towards that.
Yeah, but if that is, I just wanted to point that out, that could be a consideration because we do have a significant amount sitting there. We want to put that money to work. So it is something that could, under the economic development title, could go towards infrastructure, streets type projects and not just specifically to a business or for a business or enterprise.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Any other thoughts? Yes, Mr. Wood.
So my recollection is type B funds are about purpose and type A are about project.
Exactly. So that's what's taken to the voters. So the voter authorization is, so like with type A, and we're going to talk about this under the type A because I'm going to give you an update on type A sales tax. But under type A, the ballot language has to be for a specific project. The arena, the improvements to the arena, construction of the arena, the improvements to the seawall, that was a specific project. Under type B, the language is a purpose, economic development.
But under type A, economic development, it does not have to be project specific.
Under economic development, but how we have it structured right now, but it's a specific project. Under type B, it is a specific purpose.
But under type B, A, as it was originally passed, it did not have to name a project to qualify for economic development.
For economic development, yes.
I just want to make sure we're not confusing. Okay, so we got there was a group of money and we could allocate that, as Mr. Temez is familiar with that, to different projects or purposes as long as it met the job specific requirements.
Yes.
You brought up the waiver from HUD on affordable housing. I guess I have a little reservation on limiting what's allocated to housing.
This would allow you to do, so right now we are limited by income.
Right, but
this would could expand the income.
What my concern is if we don't do the up to 500,000, if we limit that and then we pursue this waiver direction and actually get some traction there, then, I mean, yes, it's just a requirement. We could allocate more, but
you could go back.
Yeah, that's just my only.
And it could be done on a year by year basis. You could say for 25, you know what, we only want to allocate $100,000 instead of 500,000 since we have 2.8 sitting there. But then in fiscal year 26, you could say, hey, let's allocate the full 500,000. So
when you were looking at that, did they have any information on what waivers have been granted?
I did not look that far. I just looked at the basic code, and then there's also, and this is for the city attorney to look into, there may be some questions about the conflict between the state statute but it specifically references a section of the federal code.
That is correct. That is correct. So, and there's a process for requesting that waiver through HUD. We can certainly start looking into that.
And I think as long as they know, my guess is, working with feds before, as long as they kind of know what your target is it, we're looking at workforce housing, we're not just looking to build housing anywhere or have it eligible, but it's in recognition of that level of people who can't really right now with 8% interest rates afford a house, but.
Correct.
And it could be any kinds of assistance, right? It can be
exactly
homeowner assistance or what?
Yeah, it could be down payment assistance, it could be interest buy down, there's a bunch of different, different ways to assist that. It could be specifically projects that you're looking at, buying down rents or whatever. There's a lot of different aspects that you can utilize for that.
But right now, we are still bound by that
Yes.
80%.
80% and below,
And to
exactly.
me, I think it's more of a forward-looking, interest rates will eventually
Sure.
Yeah.
come back. And
Yeah.
so right now, if we can pursue
we-
the waiver, hopefully, I don't.
But we were having trouble, the reality.
I know, but.
The reality is, we were having trouble at 3% with these funds. We've not had an easy time on.
And actually, really, what's been more of the driver on the fact of trying to get that affordable is the fact of the cost, the increase in construction costs. And so what's happening, from my understanding in talking with our housing division, is that, just the cost, what a person who is making 80% or below can qualify through a mortgage, even with down payment assistance, you can't build a house for that. And so it's really there's this gap in the fact of, you can't build a house for, 200,000, they can only qualify, and I'm just using numbers, I don't know what they are, but say if it's going to be a minimum of $200,000, but they can only, based off of their income, qualify for 150 or below, there's a pretty big gap in between what the market inventory is, even on the lower end, and what they can qualify on the mortgage side.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Any other comments? Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Zanoni, do you have any report?
None beyond what we already said.
Thank you. You were ahead of us again. So if there's no further business, I'll consider this meeting adjourned. And you can tell us when you're ready for type A. Yeah.
We were at the beach in the mud coming off of all the flooding. It's working its way down.
Absolutely.
Just crazy.
You were in Houston?
No. We were on the beach, but the water is so dirty from all of
Oh,
the
yeah, stirring off all that. Yeah.
Up north, I guess you could call it east north.
We ready? Okay. Good afternoon. Sorry to be a little late. I'd like to call the meeting of the Corpus Christi Business and Job Development Corporation, Type A Corporation, to order. Ms. Box, would you please call the roll?
Yes, President Leah Olivari,
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson,
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers,
Here.
Board members Mark LaRue,
Present.
Jesus Jimenez,
Present.
Robert Temez,
Present.
Eric Evans,
Present.
City Manager Peter Zanoni,
Present.
Assistant City Attorney Jackie Bazan.
Present.
All right, a quorum of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Box. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment? No one's here except city staff. So, have we received any
No, we have
public comments? Okay, thank you very much. I believe there are two potential excused absences, one for Mr. Wilson. Do I have a motion, and second, to excuse his absence due to illness?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we had another absence as the result of a business conflict. Ms. Summers, do I have a motion to excuse her absence from the April 15th meeting? Mr. Wilson?
Second.
Mr. LaRue? Have a motion and a second to excuse Ms. Summers' absence. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, approval of the minutes of type A on April the 15th and December 11th. We did not have a meeting, so we've got two sets of minutes to approve.
So move.
Mr. Temez, motion? Need a second? Second. No, you were absent on one of those. Do I have another second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. LaRue, so that's okay. Technical. I have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of April 15th and December 11th, 2023. I'm not going to look and see who was absent in 2023. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we have a financial report.
Good afternoon. Heather
Good
Roberts,
afternoon.
Assistant City Manager.
Long time no see.
I know. I feel like I was just here. We'll be reviewing the financials for the 6-month ending March 31st, 2024. So looking first at the Seawall Fund, we began the year with $20.9 million in funding. We received revenues of $4.7 million year to date, expenditures of $16.9 million year to date. That's primarily the transfers over into our CIP fund for those projects. Outstanding commitments of $3.5 million, leaving a fund balance of $5.2 million.
Can I stop you right there and just,
Sure.
out of a question, it's great to have this, but I want to clarify something. Since the election results in November of 2023, when now, even if something is passed in November 2024, how long will these revenues continue
going
in type?
into this purpose. It will be either until the debt is paid in full, so if we could accelerate the debt
All right.
to pay that in full, or to March 2026.
Okay, so just to keep you abreast, that there will, unless one of those two things occur, this fund will continue to accrue revenue until
Exactly.
such time.
Exactly. So yeah, either it'll continue. So we have another full year, fiscal year 25, which will go, and then basically half of fiscal year 26. So about an additional almost 2 years, because it'll be March of 26 when it would expire.
Okay, Thank you very much.
Sure. So we have a lot of projects, and I'm sorry this is really small, but we have a lot of projects that are being funded through these funds. So there's a total of $66.3 million worth of projects. $21.1 million has been spent year to date, and so that leaves a remaining balance of about $45.7 million that is available against these projects. So some of the really big projects are the Cooper's Alley Boaters Facility, and that one we have gotten past design, or the 30% design, and moving forward with that. The Piers A, B, C, D, and L, that is continuing to move forward. You can see them out there in the marina doing their work out there. The Peoples Street Boardwalk, my understanding is that we have received all the permits that we need, and we're moving forward with that. And the boat haul out facility, office, and the retail facility, we've passed 30% design on that, and so continuing to move forward with it. I think the Art Center repairs are substantially complete. The Art Museum improvements. So this is just one of those. I think those are complete or almost complete. And then we have the boiler project along with the HVAC project. And that was the $3.5 million that was showing in outstanding commitments. So the Sea District Water features, I believe that project should be closing out pretty quickly. Some of the other big ones is the Marina Breakwater. That one is substantially complete. And then the floodwater upgrades at the Science Museum, along with the Water Garden, which is almost complete too, the Sea District Water features. And so we're moving along with a lot of these projects. So really great seeing a lot of those come to completion or continued progress.
For those of y'all that weren't able to go, I think Mr. Temez I saw, I don't know who else, but the opening of the staff did an excellent job of the opening of the new, revitalized water feature in the convention center area, and it's really beautiful if you haven't seen it. So
Yeah, this was I had moved to Corpus after it had already been shut down, so it was the first time I've ever seen it on running with the lights. It was really nice. It was gorgeous.
Better lighting than it's ever had before. It's really pretty amazing. So one question regarding that, I picked up something that said something about some more work being done on the Shoreline Drive, North Shoreline Drive. Is there more work being done on that water feature?
No, I think that one is done. I think it's completed. It needs to get closed out. So that one should, so the Bay Shore, when that one is completed, I think it just needs sometimes there is a lag between the time that it's completed and the time we get it closed out and off of this list. So I believe that it is complete.
So, go ahead, Mr.
Heather, like Leah said, we attended the Water Street ribbon cutting. And it might have been the sound, but I didn't hear the Type A being recognized.
Okay, I'm not sure on that. I know that.
I was pretty close to that. I did hear it.
Okay.
And I moved to different sites of the deal. And
yeah.
It was very
those
hard
are
to hear
projects
that.
that I'd like the Type A to
Yeah, I know that.
So,
Yeah.
So the city can know what does the Type A.
Sure. I'm not sure about that. I'm from the side I was hearing, I couldn't hear everything also. So I know that y'all had been included in that. I'm not sure about the recognition piece. So anyway, but we'll make sure that that's part of the completed project.
For better or worse. The only other question I had was one project that I still get a lot of questions about is the breakwater. And so as we prepare, I understand that assessment is still ongoing, as is a reassessment of the seawall itself to just see. But I think as we prepare a CIP for the coming years, that's going to be a big question mark. There's just a lot of community discussion about that.
Yes.
And does it need to be higher? What is it? Is it subsiding, eroding, et cetera?
Yes.
Second thing is, as y'all move forward with this discussion on Type A, a lot of the community just isn't aware of what's gone on in terms of these capital improvements. I don't know how you can put together maybe some simple information on that.
Okay.
But, I just got a big thing about, y'all haven't done anything on the saltwater flat levee. And I said, oh yeah, we're doing it. So just something for you to consider, Mr. City Manager, to help you inform the community about how much has really been done on the seawall. And
we agree on that. That's part of that marketing approach
cool.
that we have to do to let people know the significant investment that has been done.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find or to understand if they're not seeing it, at the time of completion and when we're advertising.
Who pays attention to the saltwater flat? You do an awful lot of ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
So,
right. But we'll put together a comprehensive report. That's a good idea.
The saltwater flat levee? You need some better movies. No, but it's just,
it is.
Especially those infrastructure things, people just really don't pay any attention until they sort of want to question.
Yeah,
so.
it is a continuing challenge on how we disseminate this information, how we let people know of what the impact. If you look at that $66 million worth of projects that are being done in and around in support of the seawall, in support of the marina, and then those areas around there.
Right.
So that's a lot of investment.
It is.
So.
Thank you.
Sure. So then looking into the arena fund, so we came into the year with a fund balance of 13.8 million, revenues year to date of 4.7, almost 4.8 million. Our expenditures year to date is about the same, 4.7, leaving an existing ending fund balance of the 13.9.
And so again, going back to these discussions that are going on in the community.
Yes.
That's a lot of money for improvements that could be made for the arena, and yet I think people have the idea that there's no money.
Yes.
So I don't know how you cure that problem, but.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear that, I bring it up that the arena is under a budget by us, and it's all covered. All the marketing money that's there, any equipment, and it's to be done.
Yep.
The corrections to there, even the landscaping outside. So it's under the budget. So, yeah, you're right there. People don't know that what the city does for the American Bank Center or the Taipei does.
I hear the seats are a lot more comfortable.
Well,
And the roof's not leaking anymore, right? Or the air conditioning?
Well, and the other thing, the new club level is really nice. I
nice?
mean, yeah, I think that did
the
a,
open area. Have you all seen the open area that was there? Yeah. It's closed in, and it's very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
The furniture.
And well, I think as soon as we get all the furniture and everything in, we will do tours for the board to go up there and look at it. It really does expand. I mean, just the visual piece of it, having that open area, it really makes it feel a lot bigger up there
Yeah.
on the club level.
Maybe we should have a tour there.
The rodeo people were happy?
yes, no, I mean, it was, I was there at least 3 or 4 nights, and it did a great job, kind of just added another level to what the rodeo could offer from a club level that had never been there before. You were either in the suites or in the boxes, but having that really, to me, changes a lot of things on our side. And I think for the arena going forward, I mean, we've never had that club level now where they can kind of sell those seats and really make that another product offering.
Well, it's also another revenue source for the American Bank Center, because that can be rented out
Right.
separately.
Exactly.
Not necessarily in conjunction with an event within the arena, but it can be rented out separately along with, rented out in conjunction with those events. And so it really does provide a whole nother meeting space or gathering space that does add to their portfolio of offerings at the American Bank Center.
The only thing I see is it's very difficult to get in there. It is not an easy place to get in. You know, the signage, I mean.
Into the American Bank Center itself or up to
into
club
the
level?
arena itself.
Oh, okay.
It is not apparent how you get into the arena without having to go through the American Bank. You agree?
I agree. I mean, the other big part of that is, and I'm sure everyone's heard it, we talk about it a lot, is the parking down there. Is going to only continue to be a problem going forward. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It means we've got things going on, but something, you know, just as a citywide, we need to look at the downtown parking situation, like San Antonio and some other places have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, just on a side note, that is something that we are looking at. A position was added in the budget for the city is basically a parking manager, parking program manager. And so that job is posted right now. I think it just recently closed. So bringing somebody in that can really look comprehensively, not just at enforcement. It's one of the things that had been concentrated on is just kind of enforcement, but really looking overall at a comprehensive parking program within the downtown area, within North Beach, and then looking to see where else across the city that we need to look at that.
But I mean, have I missed an elevator? But is the only, if you need an elevator, is the only way to get into the arena the one? Yeah. And so that, to me, is a crying need, is another elevator shaft. Right.
Yeah, the escalator goes up to the second floor too.
Yeah, but
Wheelchairs are.
that's not a wheelchair.
Yeah, there's, I think, 3 elevators right there, that elevator bank that's right there in the lobby. That's how you get up to the
Right.
second floor.
But it's not an easy way to go. Okay. Enough said. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question from left field?
Sure.
You may not know the answer. How much money do we make from parking meters?
Not a lot. I don't know off the top of my head.
Then why don't we just give it free and make it more user-friendly?
They don't.
So that's part of what we're looking at as part of that comprehensive program, is really looking to see what we need to be doing, because it is not consistent. We have meters on some blocks, not on the others. There has been several, there's been several studies done, but then it wasn't moved forward with procuring additional stuff. So that's all part of what we're going to be looking at.
I know in the past, people have said the reason you want to keep some meters is you want that
The turnover, yeah.
Otherwise, if somebody is going to a retail place, they just park there all day.
Yes.
And then you lose all that restaurant and retail
Exactly.
fluidity.
And that's part of what that comprehensive study will show is where do we need longer term, where do we need shorter term, where are those turnover areas? And right now, kind of the downtown area is considered a 2-hour parking turnover area, especially in those prime retail spaces.
So there's two ways to kill that cat, to have parking meters or to have somebody in the golf cart go by and mark the tires.
Yeah, you can't mark tires anymore.
Really?
That's the law.
Yeah. Yeah, so but now actually it's going to more of the license plate recognition, which again, you've got to get a system in place and stuff, but yeah, you can't mark tires anymore.
Okay.
But the city department, the police department is in charge of that, isn't it?
Actually, parking was moved under economic development.
Lucky you. It's been a lot of places.
Yes. Yeah, and the reasoning behind that is looking as that's all part of that comprehensive downtown redevelopment, North Beach redevelopment, and so yeah, the parking enforcement was moved in under economic development, and then we're looking towards looking at a broader program,
Right.
Whether it's a parking district or something like that.
Coming back to the parking area for the American Bank Center, on the out-of-town avenues, they have parking lots too that they charge, and the prices are pretty good. And only one, the one in the valley, Bird Event Center or something like that. They don't charge for the parking, but it's inside the area right there. That's fenced in. It's not like the American Bank Center over here. They're all fenced in. I was surprised. I went to a big convention, a concert. And I said, how much are we? He said, no, it's free. I was surprised. But you go to San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Alice, and Dallas. They don't charge $5 or $10. They go to $15 or $20.
Yeah, I think American Bank it's up to I think $15 now.
No, 5 and 10. Is there 15? I haven't seen. Well, anyway, so.
Yeah, and
all
just
those avenues have the charges.
Sure. And some of the challenges we have around the American Bank Center is that a lot of those lots aren't owned by the city, nor are they run by the city. So it's the lot behind the American Bank Center, and then the one across the street there by Heritage Park. Those are the American Bank Center lots. A lot of those other ones are not owned by the city, nor are they run by the city.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Then moving on, look forward to the budget and discussion, some more discussion next month. We have a motion to amend the fiscal year 23-24 Corpus Christi Business Job Development Corporation budget to release funding in the amount of $165.60 related to the commitment of ALMA. These are housing funds, ALMA at Greenwood. So we had a balance in Type A. We used that up, we hoped. And then we took the rest of the ALMA money out of Type B, as I recall.
That is correct, yes.
Unfortunately, now that ALMA the money's come back.
Yes.
Move we accept.
Okay, I have a motion, second. We can't get rid of that. All those in favor of the motion to reclaim, to release the funding from ALMA of $160,000 plus, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And we have one more item, which is any staff discussion on the proposed Type A sales tax reauthorization update.
Yes. So I'm bringing the presentation up now. So I wanted to, one of the commitments we made to the board is making sure that y'all are continuing to keep up to date on the conversations that are being had amongst groups and council and things like that. So I wanted to go ahead and update you on where we are at. So one of the things that we found and was very helpful for the city council is really kind of stepping back and looking at local sales tax. And so we'll look at that in just a second, really looking at the allowable uses of local sales tax along with allowable uses of Type A and Type B. So then again, what we have those proposed baseline reauthorizations. We'll talk a little bit about those. And then wanting to get have an opportunity to discuss any of the options and proposed baseline with the board. So, the state allows up to 8.25 cents of total sales tax. And so of that, 6.25 cents is allocated directly to the state, and so that is for state operations. And so annually, based off of the fiscal year 24 budget, that produces about $445 million from the city of Corpus, from sales within the city of Corpus Christi that goes directly to the state. Then that leaves 2 cents, which is called local sales tax, which can be allocated to for local uses. And so within the city, we have 6 different local uses that it's allocated for. So a 1/2 cent goes to the RTA for transportation transportation operations. And so that is budgeted at $35.6 million for fiscal year 24. And there is no expiration to that authorization. That authorization is in perpetuity. Then there's 1 cent that goes to the city for city operations. That produces or is estimated to produce about $71 million. That goes into the city's general fund. And again, there is no expiration. That one was approved in perpetuity. Then that final 1/4 cent is divided up 4 different ways. 2 of those are for type A uses. 1 is for a type B use, and then you have the crime control district. So under type A, the voters approved 2 different projects. One was the improvements to the downtown seawall, and the other was the multi-purpose arena or construction for the arena. Each of those 1/8 cents produces almost $9 million, or is budgeted to produce about $9 million in fiscal year 24. Then there's the type B, which is approved for economic development, affordable housing, and streets. And then the final 1/8 of 1 cent is for the Corpus Christi Crime Control District, which is provides funding in support of crime control and prevention in support of the police department. So overall, sales tax in Corpus Christi is budgeted about $106 million based off of the 8.25 cents. So this is just a visual representation of a penny. 1/2 the penny goes to the city operations, 1/4 of the penny goes to the RTA, and the remaining 1/4 is divided up amongst the 4 different uses, 2 to type A, 1 to type B, and finally 1 to the Corpus Christi Crime Control. So then really, council asked us to really delve into what are other uses for sales tax, for the local sales tax portion. So under Chapter 321, sales tax can be used for general city operations, which we're doing. It can be used for property tax relief, and that's where a portion of that sales tax actually figures into your property tax calculation. It's to buy down sales tax, a fire control district, and then a municipal crime control and prevention district. So out of those 4 uses, we are currently using 2 of those. Under Chapter 327, just 2 of them. We don't have a fire district or a property tax relief district, or property tax relief.
Oh, we have just a municipal, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
That's okay.
Sorry.
And then under Chapter 327, sales tax can be used for existing city-owned streets and sidewalks, repairs and improvements to those. Under Chapter 504, which is what authorizes the 4A or Type A corporation. Chapter 505, which authorizes the 4B or Type B corporation. And then Chapter 334, which is specifically for venue projects. So the voters can approve a specific venue project under Chapter 334. So those are the allowable ones available to municipalities. But then there's also other entities that can collect sales tax or can be allocated sales tax. And so you have counties, and so counties can use sales tax for the general county operations, property tax relief, crime control district, or a special improvement district. You have municipal management districts, municipal development districts, county assistance districts, and county development districts, which can all receive sales tax, along with the Metropolitan Transit Authority, which is the RTA, emergency service districts or ESDs, a library district or special district. So all of these entities are eligible to receive sales tax in addition to municipalities.
So let me ask a quick question here.
Sure.
In terms of the counties.
Yes.
If a city is already maxed out on
Yes.
their sales tax, as is Corpus Christi
Yes.
or Port Aransas or whatever,
Robstown.
then there is nothing the county could get out of that, correct? And my understanding is that an incorporated city can opt out of a county-imposed tax.
That is correct. So if the, so for a county to take a sales tax authorization to election, there has to be an available at least 1/8 cents. And so right now, the city of Corpus Christi is at 2 cents, city of Port Aransas is at 2 cents, and city of Robstown is at 2 cents. So right now, within those entities, there is not an available 1/8 cents. So for the city of Corpus Christi, it would not be until one of our 1/8 cents expires and is not reauthorized that the county could take that to election. To your question about the opting out, if the county were to create a county assistance district, the city is able to opt out of a contributing sales tax to that county assistance district. It would apply to all properties that are currently within the city limits. It would not apply to any future properties that are annexed in. So if there are areas that are within the county that are subject to that county assistance district, it would only be able to, we would not be able to opt out to anything future that would come in. But yes, to your point, there is that option to opt out.
So there's just a limited amount that other entities can actually
It would basically
access this money.
Yes, for the county, it would basically be those collections within the unincorporated areas that aren't within Robstown, City of Corpus Christi, Port Aransas.
Whatever sales tax they could get off.
Yes.
They could do Bishop. Right?
Bishop, I think, may.
Is that in Nueces County?
No. Yes, no.
Yes, it is.
Okay, then possibly if they have a
Driscoll,
1/8
but
cents.
I think they may have they may be
Maxed out, too.
I think it's.
I'm not sure.
Agua Dulce maybe
Agua Dulce.
and Petronilla, but there's no detail there.
Heather,
Yes.
I want to ask a question. Is this, why is the Coliseum included in the chapter 334?
It's an eligible use of Chapter 334. So you could use a coliseum, a stadium, a convention center, tourist development. Those are all things that could be utilized.
What Coliseum are you talking about?
It's just any coliseum. So if a city was to move forward, they could take one of these things to the voters for approval. We're not talking specifically, this is from the state statute. These are the allowable uses, not specifically for the city of Corpus Christi to do.
We don't have one, but some cities do.
Well, in the future, it's already included.
Okay. So specifically, there's been a lot of questions about Chapter 327. So this provides for the use of sales tax to maintain and repair municipal streets or sidewalks existing on the date of election. So it cannot be used to build new streets, but it can be used for streets and sidewalks that are existing as long as they're owned by the city. So this is only for an up to 4-year term. It can be reauthorized. There's not a limit to how many times it can be reauthorized, but it does have to be reauthorized every 4 years by the voters.
No, it goes to 8.
I'm sorry?
I think the second time you can vote for 8.
With our outside counsel's opinion is that we're not eligible for that. There's other parameters on that.
Okay.
And so they said that we would only be able to authorize up to 4 years, in their opinion.
I read the law, but okay.
And so, for the purposes of this, municipal streets are defined as the entire width of a way held by a municipality in fee or easement or dedication that has part open for public use for vehicular travelers. So basically, something that the city owns that cars can drive on. And so it does not apply to anything that is owned by the state, by the federal government, or designated county road. So basically the city has to own it. It has to be a city roadway, and it has to be open and drivable at the time of election.
But it can include residential.
Yes, it can. And that's the thing, that's the hook, is that it's not just specifically for commercial streets, it's any city-owned street, so it can be used for residential streets. But this is a tool that, because it is only up to 4 years, it can be bonded against. It's basically a pay-as-you-go type of a tool. And just for reference for any type of sales tax reauthorization, the minimum amount you can authorize is 1/8 cents. It has to be done in 1/8 cents increments. So you can't authorize less than 1/8 cents. It has to be in 1/8 increments.
Now, within that 1/8, you can do what we did. You can designate use, but
different
you can't,
purposes, exactly. You can do different purposes, but not, you can't divide it up amongst statutes.
Right.
And then just a review, one of the other things that has been talked about is the use of the sales tax for military purposes. And so military purposes can be used in in efforts of preventing a future closure, attracting a new military mission to an existing base, or redeveloping a base that has been closed. So those are the three things. Also, under the General Economic Development Statute, you can utilize that for the creation and retention of just military jobs. So there's two different places that the military appears within the statute, but this is what had been a point of focus. So this is just a brief summary of all the things that Type A and Type B can be utilized for. So we talk about the projects in relation to creation or retention of primary jobs, job training, infrastructure, the military, water supply facilities and conservation programs, affordable housing, recreational or community facilities, along with business enterprises that create or retain primary jobs.
So within the existing Type A, or B, excuse me.
Yes.
Let's say, there is nothing, I mean, statutorily, you can use this money for the military right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have. So that's an example of Sinatra House. That's an example of the USO expansion that we contributed to. Those are the type of things. So yes, currently under the authorization, it can be used for military projects.
As well as other.
Exactly, because that economic development, that 50% under economic development can be used basically across almost, on any of these, because they're all considered economic development.
I mean, you don't have to have specific project.
No. So the specific projects, so remember how we had a public hearing? We have public hearings before we award projects. So that is the process where you give public notice that y'all are going to create a project. The board will create a project and move forward with the funding on it that allows that community input. Instead of being the input at the upfront, you approve it for a purpose, and then you do public hearings to notify the public what projects you're going to be using it for. And technically, the public can come and petition against those projects if they so choose.
I will caution, as we've all learned on quarters one, it sounds easy, but it's not as easy as it looks. Yes. And when it comes to the military, first of all, if it's on the base, they have to agree. And it has to meet all their legal requirements. And then on top of that, it has to flow within the state statute requirements. So it sounds like, oh, well, you can just say, we're going to go out there and do this project. It does not work that way.
Yes.
On base, anyway.
There are hoops, too, that we have to jump through. So then just a brief review. Type A Corporation was originally created in September 2000, and actually the voters authorized 3 projects, 2 in 2000 and 1 in 2002. The seawall improvements and the arena development were authorized in 2000. The economic development, including a baseball stadium, was authorized in 2002. The 2002 authorization was only for 15 years. The seawall and the arena development in 2000 were for a total of for 25 years authorization. And then whenever the 15-year authorization expired, that went back to the voters in 2016, and it was reauthorized as what is now Type B.
So the advantage of Type B is it does give you a lot more flexibility. It really allows you to do almost everything you can do in A, in B. The disadvantage is that flexibility can sometimes cause angst, as we've all experienced recently. Type A puts a little bit more guardrails, I'll say that, on certain types of projects. Type B is more open.
Yes. And to that point, so the legislation has changed in the fact that you can do Type B type projects with Type A funding and vice versa. The real thing is when it goes to the voters, again, on the Type A side, you need more specific requirements.
B can just be.
Where B, as you can do general purposes as allowed by the statute, which does give you more flexibility.
Flexibility to move the money depending on the local needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And over time.
Yeah, and those, especially if you have a use that you don't have a specific identified project yet, it allows you to purpose that. Now, on the Type B side, you can, if we wanted to, we could bring that forward under Type B with a specific project. There's nothing that prohibits it from being a specific project, but you don't have to do a specific project. You can do more of a specific purpose. So you do have more latitude on the B side.
How much bonded indebtedness do we have in those 3 areas?
So when we ran the numbers, $1 million based off of a 4% interest, will produce about $13 million worth of bonded capacity. And so right now, just based off of a 10-year collection, you could bond up to about 120, 130 million, depending on what reserves are
I guess my question is,
needed.
what is the principal balance on existing?
We don't, right now on type B, we have no,
How about type A?
type A, it's pretty small because on the type, the arena is going to be paid off in September of '25, so it may be $4 million, I'm not sure. And then on the seawall, it's another year past that, so I would say we have maybe $6 or $8 million.
So we paid it down a bunch.
We've basically done pay-as-you-go after we got past the baseball stadium, I think.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was based off, it was based off the amortization schedule, so it was 20-year debt, and so it was amortized to coincide with the expiration.
A lot of, anyway.
Yeah.
The capital cost ended up being a significantly small amount of the total
Yes,
revenue.
yeah, and that was one of the things, is that really the revenue has grown more quickly than I believe, whenever you go into it, you always are very conservative with your estimations. And so right now, our debt payments are, say, $3 million. The sales tax is producing almost $9 million, so that leaves that $6 million that we've been able to reinvest back into the facilities or for those related purposes.
Thank you.
And B, right now, we have no debt.
B, we have no debt, yes, exactly. So we've kind of talked about this already.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that we talked to council about, is that, really the authorization options are, we could reauthorize the existing sales tax back under A, we can authorize it under B, we can authorize it under another chapter of the tax code, or we could not reauthorize it, not take it to the voters, and the authorization expires.
And the one thing, maybe you have said this to council, but I don't know, that one of the advantages to sales tax as opposed to property taxes is, what is the percentage estimate of people from outside this area who pay sales tax
So I think the last time that Visit Corpus Christi ran those numbers, it looked like probably about 30% of our sales tax collections are paid by people who do not live in the area.
utilize our facilities?
And that was specifically for tourists. I'd be willing to bet it's probably higher because we are a retail center.
Right.
And so that was just specifically related to tourism. That's not I don't believe that is considering the retail influence or draw that we have that comes from outside our city limits.
Thank you.
So the term, that was another thing that when we took this to voters back in November, there was a lot of concern about not having a defined term. And so the term that is being recommended is a 25-year term that would allow for that bonding to be able to us to develop those projects and issue 20-year debt on that. And this is just an estimation of what, just based off of simple estimation and cash flow of what could be produced by 1/8 cents over those terms. This is not adjusted for time value of money, and is assuming a 1% increase in sales tax revenue per year. So we've talked about this a little bit, but what is being proposed, the project for one of the 1/8 cents is the American Bank Center complex, including the arena, the convention center, and the Celine Auditorium, along with other city-owned facilities within that C District area. So it would include the 3 museums, the Harbor Playhouse, and the Water Garden. So I think y'all are aware where those are, but they are very close proximity to each other and really do work in conjunction with each other.
That would be type A.
Well, we could authorize that under type A or type B. That's just one of the projects that's being proposed.
And all of those are eligible to receive hot taxes?
Yes and no. So the American Bank Center complex there is some provision under HOT that we could possibly for the museums. There's more limitations on being able to use the hotel occupancy tax within those.
Some portion of theirs
Yes.
I think they're all eligible for.
Yeah, the Water Garden probably would not. Well, there's some questions on the Water Garden because it's kind of considered a
Tourist
plaza, and that is eligible for convention center area. Plaza could use hotel occupancy tax too. So these are just some of the, we've been going out, and I'm sorry that's a little small, but we've been going out and meeting with stakeholder groups and community groups. And so these are some of the feedback that we have received from those groups, some in favor, some with thoughts for consideration. So, that include not only repairs, but also future expansion within the American Bank Center, continue with the use of the sales tax for funding versus property taxes, narrow the scope of the facility. That we've received some feedback that they felt like that scope was too broad, continue using the funding for co-promotion of events. That's one of the things that we've done within Type A, is utilize that for co-promotion. Consider using the downtown tours as a funding source. Allow use to purchase additional land around the American Bank Center, which, whether it's authorized under A or B, that is an eligible use. Adding additional square footage to the exhibit halls and meeting rooms, and that's an expansion. The plan as presented seems logical with a term limit. Include the baseball field for capital improvements and maintenance. Allow program flexibility for future needs, and consider proposing projects that appeal citywide, like streets, job training, instead of C district buildings.
You haven't gotten feedback about the marina? Because I sure have.
Well, that would be on the seawall side.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a second. This was
Good.
just specifically
just for
about the first
cultural- I
project.
got you.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So then moving into our second project that's being proposed, it would be for use for the downtown seawalls, including the primary seawall structure, which we consider the one that goes along shoreline from McGee Beach down to the port, the breakwater, the salt flat levees, the T&L head land masses, and the flood control pumps to protect the downtown businesses. Those all work together. They were all built to work together, and so those are all included. And then also add citywide flood control and coastal resiliency projects to help create or expand new business areas.
Heather,
Yes.
would this cover, if everybody wanted to do it, extending the seawall down by the Art Museum around the Museum of Science and History, maybe hooking up with the port?
Yeah, because that actually the seawall does go around there. It's just you don't have the promenade, basically. And so that would be considered part of the seawall structure.
Well, yeah, just a little, so there's actually two projects in our capital budget that City Council approved. One is for bulkheading. There's some bulkhead, but there's some collapse of the bulkhead by the Army Corps building, and then as you progress more towards the Port of Corpus Christi. So that's $3.5 million. Is I got to get the status on the design or what have you, but that's in the budget. That's a project for this year. And then there's an additional $2 million for some type of treatment to either do right now the plan in the capital budget is to connect that walkway that would be on the seawall to the water gardens through the Museum of Science. So, but it may change since that capital budget was approved. We have better connection and working relationship with the Port of Corpus Christi. So we're going to see, can we partner with them to do maybe both, or is one more important than the other? The walkway versus the connection of the walkway to the water garden.
Didn't I see them just getting some money from another source?
Yeah, the Port of Corpus Christi, they're getting about over $5 million, I think, from the CDBG MIT money to build what is known as Harbor East Park, right between their administration building and the port. I mean, their administration building and the Museum of Science. Yeah. It's on city property that we have a lease with the.
Will that be connected with the seawall project that you're talking about right now?
Say that again, Mr. Tomasi.
The park that the port wants to create there.
Right.
Is that going to be connected to the seawall?
That would be yeah. It would be. There would be the original renditions have like an overlook that would almost jut you out into the bay. I mean, into the ship channel a little bit. And so we know that big vessels go by, and so that overlook would give somebody the chance to almost be, right up on the water. So that I'm not sure if that's what their final design will have, but that's what was in their original design.
Well, they had talked about that project that was supposed to start in October.
Yeah, those are delayed. Well, they had to go through the paperwork to get the money, so that's all secured now. And in my recent conversation about a month ago with Kent Britton, the CEO of the port, he said the project is still moving forward and they're committed to it. Yeah, so there's money, in short, there's money in our budget and a plan for the bulkheading, for the actual flood control device, and then there's some money for some type of top treatment, whether it connects that to the water garden or we reallocate it for the promenade, the walking surface. Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we worked with Public Works and looked at their master plan and identified projects that spread across the city that are identified as projects that would help activate areas or help promote growth within areas that have been prone to flooding or have had flooding issues. And so these range, and we'll show you more detailed maps in a little bit, range from the FM 624 drainage issues, which up in Calallen, all the way down to Turkey Creek, the North Beach Phase 2, Corpus Christi Bay shoreline erosion mitigation and protection, which would stretch all the way down from Cole Park down to the university, the Clarkwood Ditch and Oso tributary, the Williams Ditch area, and then the Oso Creek. So one of the feedback we got last time when we took this to voters is there was not a designated amount set aside specifically for the seawall. So we are working with engineering to identify what we feel like would need to be set aside to be able to sufficiently protect and maintain the seawall. Right now, that $73 million is an estimation. We're still working on what that should be, but that would allow for, on average, at least $2 million a year being invested back into the seawall. Escalated over time would be about $73 million over the 25-year period.
Mr. Wilson?
So I asked our engineer that exact question, and he said 2 million, maybe 2.5 takes care. We just way overfunded at the beginning because we didn't know.
Exactly. I think it was more, the what was authorized in Type A was more focused on the debt service, making sure we had sufficient revenue for that. But yes, we feel like that, like I said, right now we're using about $2 million a year on average. That's not going to be $2 million every year, but to be able to cover those annual maintenance needs along with every 3 years, every 5 years, those occasional needs that are going to be needed. So that still leaves about we've got identified about $193 million in projects. Those are today prices, but we feel like that between grant funding and then this funding that we should be able to accomplish these.
All of that being based on what we know today relative to FEMA, freeboard.
Exactly.
Seawall requirements, insurance. I mean, it's a moving target.
Exactly. And I think that, while we have identified maybe a set aside, I think the primary is the seawall focus. And so, having it within the measure, which is the voter with the contract with the voters, is that priority is seawall and possibly these other projects if we need to put more money over there.
Would all of these improvements be on public property?
Yes.
I think that is an important distinction in your language.
Okay.
I mean, when you go back to the previous slide, I would say, I'm not saying it has to be the cities, but I think it should be public property.
Yeah, and these are all roadways or drainage ways or public right of ways.
Right, but just to help in the future when somebody's private comes in, I can see some of these areas where there might be a push to help with individual properties.
Sure.
So with all of these properties and the seawall, you're looking around $266 million.
Estimated, yes.
On an average collection of about $9 million a year from the sales tax over 25 years, correct?
Yeah, so we think that it'll produce about $256 million over the 25-year period.
So that would, if you did this, all 8 would be dedicated to those.
Yes, if we didn't, the seawall and then these other projects.
All 8 of the current seawall would go to these projects.
Yeah. But again.
Or ones like them. I mean.
Exactly. Or ones like them. Exactly. We really anticipate on some of these, especially the Oso Creek. We've already received some grant funding on it. We would continue seeking grant funding so that then we could utilize this on other projects if there's sufficient revenue. But the focus would be stormwater, flooding issues.
What is North Beach?
Phase 2, so that is the linear canal. So we have sufficient funding for the first phase, which is on the northern part of the island. The phase 2 is going to extend it more towards, like after the bridge goes down, more towards the aquarium to help relieve the flooding on North Beach.
So it is not It is not a canal that can be, it's
It is
just a
not, it's
drainage
not a navigable canal.
Okay, thank
It is a linear park. It may be able to be navigated by kayaks, but nothing with a, if there's a sufficient water in it, but not
a lot of mosquito repellent.
but not a motorized boat would go through that, so.
This William Ditch.
Williams Ditch is right
Yeah.
there at Williams Road and Rodfield. That is where Williams Road ends, and we call that Williams Ditch is where Williams Road would extend to.
Ennis
There is a drainage channel that goes all the way through there across Ennis Jocelyn, actually then goes under SPID and exit into the bay. So we've already done a lot of improvements there between Ennis Jocelyn and the bay, but this would be extending Williams Ditch. We probably would not be able to extend it all the way over to Ennis Jocelyn because there's now private property owners in there, but probably coming over, I think it's Lexington? No, there's another road right there before Ennis Jocelyn that it'd be extended over to. Is it Lexington? Okay. I have a lot of road names in my head.
So one point to make and one question.
Sure.
As we as a community look at going forward to reauthorize these 1/8 sales taxes, I think the city ought to take care of what it owns.
Okay.
And that's important to the members of the community, that they are proud.
Sure.
And that our bejeweled assets of the shoreline and the bayfront don't look run down.
Okay.
So that's my point. You get what you pay for.
Sure.
Is it possible in the election or the vote to prioritize and tell the people that if there's not enough money, we're not going to the next one? Or, because things can change.
Sure.
The late 80s.
I think it would be a mistake to even name the projects. I mean, in the language itself, right?
So remember with a ballot, you have two different
Is that
pieces
where
of
you're going?
language.
Yeah.
You have what goes on the ballot, which is usually
Right.
the very short and sweet, and then you have the measure, which is the contract with the voters. I think our thought is that we would include these as priority projects, but if there is sufficient funding or if we find a need that those do not need to be done, then we would move on to different projects. But it would have to fit within certain parameters, like I said, with the coastal resiliency or the flooding mitigation.
And so these funds would only be, you could only use these funds for flood mitigation.
Flood mitigation and coastal resiliency, yes.
And when you say coastal resiliency, that would cover?
That one's a little bit looser. There is a lot of, like right now, we know there's a lot of erosion along Corpus Christi Bay. And so trying to mitigate that, we have shoreline erosion issues along Oso Bay, Flower Bluff. And then we really don't know what's going to be coming in 25 years. And maybe with tidal rising and things like that, we may need to possibly build another seawall area or something along those lines. So that's what would more fall under that coastal resiliency or flood mitigation.
It's also good buzzwords right now to get federal funding.
Exactly. There's a lot of federal funding out there
Nobody
too.
knows what resilience means, but
That could be utilized. These could be utilized for the city's match to federal grants and things like that too.
so my only concern about that is, like, I could see, I think on the base, one of the projects I've heard about is the shoreline area there.
Yes.
It's public property.
Yep.
So when you do council districts, it seems like to me that would be all the districts could be possible on that
Sure.
one. You just don't know where
It'd
it
be
is.
citywide, yeah,
Right.
exactly. And these were, like I said, these were just the ones that we identified that those are within our 10-year master plan that have been identified as needs across the city.
Mr. Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
you got it. You're like, no, you're ready to go home? Okay.
I know, I'm sorry, I've talked a lot, but here's the representation of where those projects are. I won't go through unless you have specific questions about these, but these are more of the individual maps of where these projects are, what they include, a little bit more detail on them.
I certainly think questions are going to come up about how this I'm not asking for an answer today, but how this as opposed to the stormwater fee, how those two interact with each other. So I'll just mention that.
Sure. Then the feedback that we've received on the seawall and flood control projects is including marina capital maintenance and improvements and maintenance as a cost, include the art center as an eligible venue, allow program flexibility for future needs, and then the need for citywide coastal resiliency.
Thank you.
And then just overall on all the uses is the statement not to use it for educational projects. There's other alternative funding for that. Overall concern about the funding capacity for all the improvements that have been identified. There are already checks and balances in place that keep the community involved in the process even after the tax is approved. And with the removal of the existing bridge, there's a generational opportunity to invest and improve the downtown Sea District and Sea Wall attractions and experience. So next steps, we are doing the community engagement meetings and community surveys. Hopefully the community survey will be launched this week. We're continuing to refine that. We are proposing actually to bring it back on June 18th, not the 25th, to present to City Council on what we've heard and any changes to what the baseline is. And then continue with that community engagement and education. The vote to call the election is August the 13th, and then election day is November the 5th.
Thank you. And I'll ask this to Mr. Zanoni. You're also planning to bring forth the bond election?
Yes, we are, Chair.
Ballot too.
Yes, in November. So the City Council still has to finalize the list of projects. We're doing similar where we're engaging almost over 60 days, community members, stakeholders, interested parties, and then we'll bring back on that same June 18, right? Is it June 18?
Yes.
This is what seeming to be the close to final list, and then one more time in July, a final list. And then in August, City Council will approve that final project list, the propositions, and the election, the ballot language.
Great.
That'll be in August.
So if they don't see their project on one list, they may see it on another.
Yeah, so the bond's $175 million, with 92 of that, about 90 to 92 for streets, and about 30 something for parks, and then public safety is the remainder. Police and fire, substations, replacement fire stations, and then some initial work on a community center / senior center in the south side area. That'll be a separate proposition, a library, senior, community type center to replace the Garcia Library that's in joint partnership with one of the school districts. And with the new safety protocols, it's just a tougher business model today. So we'll build our separate one. And we're in communication with that school district, and they're in agreement with that. So a good bond program with projects across the city, just about equally, and addressing some of those critical need projects in each of the city council districts. Mm-hmm. No tax rate increase, too, I should add. So we can do it with our existing tax rate. Yep.
Would that be no appraisal rate?
Well, that's another matter. Yeah, but the appraisals are down this year. I should add, the city has, in the past 2 years, had in excess of 10% new value and reappraisal value. I think it was 12% actually the last 2 years, 6% 3 years ago. And this year, the preliminary values are only 2.2% up. And we're seeing that in some of our partner cities as well in Texas. So a little bit of a slowdown in reappraisals and new value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine work that way. But. Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments from Mr. Zanoni?
I think that's it for us for today.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if there's no further business, let's adjourn the meeting for today. Thank you very much for your attention and comments.
Good job, Madam President.